The Oklahoma City Thunder are back 123 to 107. They smack the living effing you know what out of the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers looked flustered, discombobulated, disorganized. Tyrese Halleberton looked unassertive. Pascal Siakam looked very ineffective. 3 for 11 from the field for Siakam. Halliburton had an uncharacteristic 5 turnovers. He finishes the game with 7 for 13, but doesn't get to the line at all. 17 points. I don't think that late scoring that he scored in the fourth quarter that was necessarily emblematic of his impact on this series or his ability to impact this series, because I just think that Tyrese Halleberton is a very flawed basketball player. And I don't think that enough is said about just how ineffective he is in isolation as a scorer, as a lead decision maker. He is good, but in this series, he has so far not been good. He has been uncharacteristically bad at taking care of the basketball. And I think that this Indiana Pacers team that really just ran everyone out of the gym through the first 3 rounds, and we were saying like, wow, I guess transition is back in the NBA, right? Well, what happens, when you go up against a buzzsaw like this is all that transition offense goes away. And in fact, through the first 2 games, the Pacers have had the 2 worst transition scoring games of the entire playoffs for them. Their transition frequency has gone down exactly by half. And yes, the Oklahoma City Thunder have a lot to do with that. And this Pacers defense has somewhat impressed me so far. I think they've been much better than I've given them credit for. But that's about as much as I will say about that, because I don't think that they're the better team. I walked into this series saying OKC in 3. And after game 1, there was a lot of overreactions. Let's remember some of those overreactions, shall we? In light of what just happened today, which was an end-to-end whooping. One of those overreactions was that maybe we have been sleeping on this Indiana Pacers team all along. And I think that that is fair. It is really worth noting that you don't play the record. It doesn't matter that this is a 50-win team. They were on pace to be close to a 60-win team after January 1st. So they should be respected, and I should give them a little bit more credit. Overreaction number 2. They have the second best player in the series. I don't think he looked like the second best player in the series tonight. And Pascal, third best player in the series, Pascal Siakam. And I think it's worth noting, I don't think Chet or J-Dub necessarily played that great, but I do think it's a little bit of an overreaction. But I would understand why you feel that way, given how J-Dub started out this game, played last game, how Chet looked completely frazzled. I get it. Overreaction number 3, which I think was really truly an overreaction, was that maybe Tyrese Halleberton and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are on the same planet as basketball players. They are not. They are not close. One is a tier 1 all-time superstar. The other one is a high-level all-star. Okay? One of these guys is a superstar who can command the game. And I think Shai, despite the fact that he scored fewer points in today's game, he was more efficient, shot over 50% from the field. He got to the line 12 times. He was great defensively. He was beautiful as a passer. He had a lot of those hockey assists as well. He was incredible splitting those double teams. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I said this 5 months ago, and I'm going to stand on it today, is having one of the all-time guard seasons in NBA history. His numbers in the finals as a guard are going to be up there. It's going to be him, and it's going to be Michael Jordan. So if you're a Canadian, be proud. He's the greatest Canadian basketball player we've ever seen. All right? Avery saying, put Hallie on OKC and he makes the offense better. Yep. That was certainly something someone was saying. I'll tell you some other stuff that people were saying, that the OKC Thunder were weak because they overreacted by changing their starting lineup. That is not weak. It is Mark Daigneault understanding how this offense needs to structure and how it needs to work. And with Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, 2 guys who frankly are capable of at least protecting close to the basket, you need to pull them out of the paint to allow Shai to operate. And this is where I think the great ace in the hole for OKC is their lineup versatility. And when I was in the PCL debating against Nerd Sesh, I think it was Carson or Logan. I can't remember which one. Sorry, I got mixed up. I think it was Logan. Or was it Carson? No, it was Logan. When I was debating against Logan on the depth of OKC, I consistently brought up the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder are basically the most versatile team that I've ever seen. And that versatility compounds their depth. So it's one thing to say we have this wonderful, backup guard, Alex Caruso. But you don't just have a backup guard. You have a Swiss Army knife who you can throw on a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and apparently even a 5 because he drew a matchup with Nikola Jokic. You have players like Jay Will, who may not play this entire series, who could come in and be high level impact players. You have a player like Aaron Wiggins, who didn't play well last game, but was probably the unsung hero of this game. And he can guard multiple positions. Isaiah Joe can guard multiple positions. They can all guard multiple positions. And that gives you so much flexibility where you can legitimately go with, Case and Wallace at the 1 or Case and Wallace at the 4, Lou Dort at the 3 or Lou Dort at the 5. J-Dub at the 1, J-Dub at the 5. Like, this type of lineup flexibility is just so paramount to how they play basketball, and we saw it on display. So what happened today, right? You start with the same starting lineup. They don't change. They go right again with Case and Wallace, who struggled considerably in the last game, right? You don't go away from him. You don't go away from J-Dub, and you don't go away from Chet Holmgren. All three players, very young, very inexperienced in these moments, and all three of them struggled immensely. All three started again, and all three had their moments of struggle again. But the Oklahoma City Thunder have been very clear from the onset. They're not, and this is the craziest thing, they're almost, I say this as someone with Asperger's, their entire organizational philosophy is very Asperger's-esque. This is going to be very weird and abstract, but let me just hammer my point. They never lose focus of what is the point. They never lose the point. And the point of this season was growing all of these players. So no, they're not going to ditch, their entire development because they're in the finals. They're going to win as a team. They're going to win how they got here, right? Wow, autism attack. It's not an autism attack. Chill your roll right now. Like seriously, I don't like the last 3 comments you've posted. So just go touch grass, chill out. Okay? There's not an attack on autism. I'm trying to explain to you as someone who has Asperger's how my brain works. And I'm very fixed on the point. I can't deviate from the point. To me, Scotty Barnes is untouchable, so he's untouchable. It doesn't matter what you're getting. Boom, he's untouchable. Like that, those two concepts cannot be divorced. And so for the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're not removed from the idea that this will be a development year. And they're not going to go away from Case and Wallace because Alex Caruso is a better basketball player. They're not going to destroy his confidence, right? Spectrum attack. Okay, you can go fuck yourself. Peace. Okay. It's not an attack. Saw it as an attack because you're stupid. All right, moving on. Point being that when I see this team consistently double down on this idea that they're going to go with this, that explains why they didn't go and trade for Cam Johnson at the trade deadline. Yes, I was arguing that they should. I was like adamant. I'm like, my God, these chances don't come back. And they're just like, nope. It's about the championship window. We're not, gonna go gung-ho. And they played a slightly shorter lineup, but they didn't go Tibbs on this team. They didn't say, oh, Chet, you're struggling. Okay, we're gonna start, Isaiah Hartenstein, go sit on the bench. They don't do that. This is a team that is relentlessly obsessed with the process. So what did they do today? They had this, people were like, oh, they blinked first, right? That was the whole thing. They blinked first. They changed their starting lineup. They should have changed their starting lineup. But this double big lineup, which has been so successful, it's not that successful against Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam because Isaiah Hartenstein does not need to be guarded outside of 12 feet. And so one of those guys is always able to offer help on J-Dub and Shea drives and Case and drives. So in order to remove that extra paint defender, you do have to play 5 out against that lineup. But kudos to Mark Daignault, who registered that when Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin were on the court, now they can go with their double big lineup. And Obi is not a good defensive rebounder. Siakam is not a good defensive rebounder. They have a hole here. And what's interesting is because Chet was completely having an out-of-body experience in game 1, OKC actually lost the battle of the rebounds. Now, part of that is because OKC missed more shots. Partially, that's the reason why, but they also lost the offensive rebounding glass. That cannot be, that's just not sustainable. So they stick with their principles. They stick with the guys that got them here. They continue to develop. They continue to believe. And organizationally, that's a very coherent thought. And it structures right through. And it doesn't disrupt your chemistry. It doesn't ruin anyone's, yeah, sure. If Cason's going to play great, he's going to get more minutes. If he's not going to play great, he's going to get fewer minutes. But they're not abandoning their principles. And I do like some of their adjustments, attacking that Thomas Bryant lineup for sure. Not being nearly as aggressive on some of their traps, getting a little bit more balanced in terms of how quickly they recover to shooters. I don't think Indiana had nearly as many incredible open looks, right? And typically when they did, they usually ran him off the line a little bit. There was one that comes to mind with Obi Toppin where he does get open. They force him to put the ball on the, they force him to put the ball on the floor, sidestep, and he misses the three. I thought Ben Mathurin was really good today. 4 for 7, 22 minutes. Doesn't tell the story of his 14 points. I thought he might have been like the lone bright spot for them. Let's talk about OKC. I mean, just in general, like how OKC does this. Their defense is so good. It shape shifts like a motherfucker. It really does feel like you're playing 7-on-5 all the time. The recovery, their ability to mask and blend mismatches. You think you have a mismatch. You've got Pascal Siakam posting up on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He thinks it's a mismatch because he's got a 3-inch advantage. And then boom, there goes, the second defender coming in, poking the ball away. You got to move so fast against this team. And I think, in a lot of ways, Indiana is the perfect test for OKC. It's not something I thought coming into this year. It's not something I thought coming into the playoffs. I definitely thought Boston will test this team. Cleveland might test this team. I even, gave a little bit of credit to New York. I'm like, maybe New York could test this team, right? But really, the more you sit with the ball in your hands, the more you delay your decisions, the more they are able to predict. So in a lot of ways, it's okay. In the last game, I think Indiana passed the ball almost 100 times more than OKC did. And it's like, okay, if you get those passes through, it's great. If you don't get them through, those are turnovers. So I think with all the turnovers, I think maybe Indiana held onto the ball a little bit too much sometimes, So Phoenix plays that said came straight from Twitter. You said trade for Kuminga? What? Yeah, I might be a little bit higher on Jonathan Kuminga. We'll talk about that after we talk about the game. So, Shai, I think he was really weak down the stretch of the last game defensively. He made a lot of mistakes. In this game, no. It was two-way dominance from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Show you all the box score here. I mean, this doesn't necessarily tell the story of this game. Not a single pacer cracks 20 points. Tyrese Halleberton somehow ends up being the leading scorer anyways. He's also the leading shot taker, which maybe isn't the recipe for success. The other guys did not have it going, right? And of course, with this team, you always feel like there's a chance. But apparently Rick Carlisle didn't think there was a chance because he pulled his starters with about 4 minutes to go in this game. And the minute you saw Johnny Furphy, the game was effectively over. And I believe it was a 19-point game or a 17-point game. It was a 17-point game at that moment. And you think to yourself, man, 17 points, 4 minutes. This team has done something similar to this before. But I think Rick Carlisle correctly knew that the best they could do is burn themselves out. And then who knows, like when the game is over, it really is over. There's 2 days to recover between this. It's worth noting that between games 3 and 4 in Indy, there's only 1 day between. So it's a Wednesday and then it's a Friday. So the next game, which is game 3, is on Wednesday, right? So you'll have Monday, Tuesday to recover, get yourself ready. Obviously, if you're Indiana, you're looking to protect home court. If you're OKC, you're obviously looking to even up because they stole 1. Now we got to steal 1. So game 3 should be great. But if game 3 is one of those grinded out, physical, draining type of games, you don't have a lot of recovery time because there's only 1 day between game 3 and game 4. And then there will, of course, be 2 games, 2 days between game 4 and 5. So, to account for the 1.5 hour flight between these 2 cities. But I think it's just very interesting to note that, they this is not this is going to be a matter of attrition, right? You certainly don't want some stupid thing to happen in the last 4 minutes, and if you know for sure you can't win the game, shit, call it out. Call your bench up and let them cook. I thought Chet had a lot of loose moments in today's game. He had a couple of drives where it's like, what the hell are you doing? He had 2 turnovers, and I think they were both very unforced type of turnovers. He's not like he cooked on the defensive glass or the offensive glass. I don't think he necessarily dominated in that space. But Isaiah Hartenstein, like the 3 points don't really give it full due. Those 8 rebounds, including those 3 offensive rebounds, especially against in that double big lineup with Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin on the other end, I think that was huge. They're, I believe, plus 17 or plus 27 in minutes. I think it's plus 17 in Isaiah Hartenstein's minutes across 2 games. So it's plus 17 tonight. And I think they were also like plus in the last game as well. So they're just much better with him on the court. He had the highest plus minus apart from Aaron Wiggins, who I think is just great, right? What they signed him to, 4 years, 32 million. Like, what are we talking about? Or 4 years, 35, or something like that. That is one of the craziest deals. And sometimes he barely plays for them, but he comes off the bench in 21 minutes and gives them 18 huge buckets, including several self-generated buckets, including a very nifty finish, including a lot of finishes on those catch and shoot threes. Alex Caruso comes off the bench. What an embarrassment of riches, man. In 48 minutes off the bench from Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins, you get 38 points. 38 points on 12 for 22 shooting. They splashed 9 threes off the bench. I mean, shit. You tie them at their secret weapon. You beat them at their game because their game is 3-point efficiency. Their game is 3-point volume and efficiency. And you nearly match them for volume and you beat them on efficiency. This is the recipe for success. This is the recipe for success. And by the way, this is not a narrow win. Okay. This is not we squeaked by 5. No, they fully controlled this game from start to finish. There wasn't a quarter that they lost until the 4th quarter, which again, if they kept their starters on, probably would have won that game. So I just think that was just, it's a very good game for them. Now, J-Dub, I think, had a really bad game for the most part. The 19 points might fool you, but in the first half, he was driving into like congested paint, making really bad decisions with the basketball. The saving grace is he gets to the line 9 times, so he was aggressive. He's not hitting his threes. You do wonder, right? Like, this is a second straight game where he hasn't really shown up. He's had his playoff struggles before. Did we see this with James Harden? Is this why the Thunder moved off of James Harden? I mean, we did see it, right? James Harden struggled in that finals run. They decide to let him go to Houston. He becomes an all-time great. I don't think J-Dub necessarily has the ceiling of James Harden. I do, however, think that he might be one of the more underrated and overrated players in the league, depending on who you ask, right? Overrated in the sense that, like a lot of second options, I don't think he can just go and command a team on his own and carry an offense and floor raise it from, the lottery to a playoff contender. I don't think he can do that. I don't think his game is conducive to that. Underrated in that he just fits perfectly with what they do. And I think that's the larger point, is that all of these pieces just work. All of these pieces just work. I mean, every one of them are in a perfect spot for them. Isaiah Hartenstein, no ego, come off the bench, no problem. Don't take any shots, no problem. Takes 2 shots the whole night, gets to the line, just does the dirty work, dribble handoffs, good connective passing, just, willing to box out, willing to defend. Chet Holmgren, again, no ego, top 5 recruit, number 1 player in the country in his class, if I recall that correctly. Takes 11 shots, no problem. 11 shots in 28 minutes, which means he took fewer shots per minute than the role players who came off the bench, and Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins. No problem. Don't force anything, right? That's kind of the Thunder culture, though. It's bigger than us, right? It's bigger than any one individual. And I think that starts with Shea, right? And I think Shea, really, they have no answer for him at all, man. They really don't. Nolan Bambury, shout outs to you for all the super chats in the last live. Appreciate you. Who's the better second option if J-Dub helps Shea win the championship, Pascal or J-Dub? Honestly, offensively Pascal, defensively J-Dub. And I think that's a pretty consistent. I think I've pretty much been there the whole time. I think Pascal's a more complete offensive player. I think J-Dub is just a far, far more impactful defender. But yeah, like, I mean, it starts with Shea, right? Like, look, I'll tell you how I knew, before this game even started, that I thought the Thunder wouldn't come out and stomp them. I listened to the post-game pressers for Tyrese Halleberton and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I listened to Rick Carlisle, whatever. It was something interesting in Hallie's, he was talking about the shoes and was it the shoes? And he was very confident. And, we saw Pascal after game one saying, yo, let's be greedy. Let's be greedy. We didn't even play well. Right? Araf Haroon saying, Pacers and 6. Rob, you going to eat your words. And you think so. Cool. So we're listening to Halliburton, and they were very confident. They were talking about how we didn't play well, whatever. That's not a big deal. But you listen to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's, and he was just so measured. You have to really pinch yourself to tell yourself this guy's not 45 years old. Like, he has the most ridiculous composure for someone who's 26. And I found this telling that when they brought up Tyrese Halliburton's game winner, he smiled. Sounds really random for me to bring that up, but he smiled. He's just like, great shot. It's a really great shot. He wasn't salty about it. He didn't say like, oh, well, he struggled for the rest of the game. He certainly didn't pull out the analytics nerd in himself and say, well, he had a 0.4 box minus. I outplayed the shit out of that, fraud. No. And all the talk around the entire internet for the next 2 days was how Halliburton's so great. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, should have made that final shot. When you miss the final shot and the other guy hits the final shot, there's usually some salt, a little bit of ego bruise, right? Especially with the narratives that come out, the questions that start to provoke. But Shea didn't do that. He smiled. And then he was brought back to Aaron Gordon's game winner in game 1 of the Denver OKC series. And he also smiled. Smiling at 2 of your biggest heartbreaks, that takes a very stoic and very interesting person. I don't know how to explain it, but it tells me that there was going to be no hangover from game 1 to game 2. And there never is. In the 5 losses that Oklahoma City has taken in the playoffs so far, they have come out and won by an average margin of 19 points in those next 5 games. Mark said, Shea has the ability to zoom out and focus on the big picture when everyone else is frozen in the moment. Can you tell why he might be one of my favorite players? Give me 1 second. He's really not a prisoner of the moment, and I really do love that about him. And I think that really speaks well to how he's so composed down the stretch. I think that speaks to how he handles blitzes and double teams. I think that speaks to how he handles a cold streak. I think that speaks to how he handles his teammates and, how often he'll continue to pass to players who are struggling. He continued in game 1 to continue to pass to J-Dub, even though it was obvious J-Dub didn't have it. Because, and again, big picture thinker, he knows that in order to win this series, J-Dub is going to have to be better. So continuing to feed confidence in your teammates, that's the antithesis of being a prisoner of the moment. And, historically, he has typically been a little bit more trigger happy in game 1s, and then he sort of settles. I think a lot has been said about how impressively cerebral Tyrese Halleberton is as a basketball player. And I'm not going to make any light of how smart a basketball player I think Tyrese Halleberton really is. His ability to get off the ball, his ability to make decisions in a snap of a second, his ability to map the floor, ability to hit clutch shots. This is a very special mind in his own right. But I think in all of the glazing of Tyrese and how cerebral he is, I think people sometimes might miss how cerebral Shea is. how incredibly bendy he is as a basketball player, right? He's like water, right? Just he's everywhere all at once, right? Defensively, poking away, offensively, splitting those double teams. They didn't have a matchup for him, right? Nemhard's not it. Neesmith's not it. Siakam's not it. You've run out of answers. There's no answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I shudder to think there might not be a single answer for this guy in the NBA. You know what? That's what being great is. How many times today did I watch Shai split a double team, face a double team, and still score? That's 4 defenders. If you put better shooters around Shai, you might actually have the makings of like a 10 assist or 11 assist season because he's going to find him. He's not a selfish player. I typically am not really one for the mega scores. Like throughout my life, I didn't necessarily gravitate towards mega scores, but I do gravitate towards hyper efficient scores. Like some of you know that Kevin Durant was one of my favorite players growing up. Obviously, loved him the entire way through. Obviously, Scotty Barnes is my favorite player now. Shai is one of my favorite players. I just like players who are smart basketball players. At the end of the game, I don't care if you scored 40 or if you scored 20. I really could give a shit less if you scored 10. Were you efficient? Were you assertive? That's all I care about. If you put your imprint on the game and the box score says 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, I don't care. If you froze out your teammates and took terrible shots and the game and the score says 38 points, I also don't care. So to me, it's about kind of being pure about the game of basketball and what we are trying to accomplish on every single possession. And what we're trying to accomplish on every single possession is a collapse. What we're trying to accomplish is gravity. What we're trying to accomplish is space. What we're trying to accomplish is imbalance on the defensive end. What we're trying to accomplish is shot quality. So falling in love with that process, it doesn't really matter if Shai shoots 11 for 21 or 5 for 21. I give a shit less if he scores 2 for 21. Do you win those minutes and those possessions? Do you get good results out of it? And Shai was, man, he was the epitome of results today. Every time they put the ball in his hands, it was great things happening for them on the court. Every time they tried to do something defensively, he had his hand in the cookie jar. He's being a great team defender. He handled his one-on-one possessions really well. I think this guy could average 40 if he really wanted to. If he wanted to go out there and gun for selfish accolades, there's nobody stopping this guy from averaging 40. I know that some people might find that fucking weird because there really aren't a lot of players in NBA history you could say that about. You could say about Michael, you could say about Kobe, you could say about KD. That's it. That's the list. Those 3 guys, maybe LeBron. That's 4. Maybe Jokic, Shaq. I mean, man, we getting into some very uncomfortable territory of players who can dominate the game on this level. Steph? No. No, I'm sorry. No. No, you cannot say that about Steph. Steph requires a lot around him, screens and, there's shot variance to it. Steph is nowhere near like the downhill attacker Shai is, right? Like Steph's amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. I have him as a top 10 player of all time. I have him above I have him above KD. But yeah, like Steph's unconscious, right? Like when Steph wants to get it going, he can get it going. But like there are matchups for Steph. You know what I mean? Like there's defenses for Steph. But like there's really no defense for Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like there's no one defender that stops them. And I think that's kind of like the one-on-one of it. Like that's very maybe sexy when the highlights come out, like this guy just cooking these guys one-on-one. But it's like you're loading 2-3 defenders on this guy and he's just splitting it. Donovan Mitchell's legit. I don't wouldn't quite put him in that category, but he's amazing. I really I've said for years Donovan Mitchell is the best shooting guard in the NBA. I stand by it for sure. Right? What defense is there for Steph? This I have to hear. He has come up extremely short in some very, very, very big moments throughout his career. I think you'll agree on that. Hopefully you'll agree on that, right? Play physical, I'm not like, don't get me wrong. I'm not diminishing that he's still probably going to put up 30. I'm just saying he can't be super efficient without a lot of assistance and a lot of system around him. I don't think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander right now, like that's the thing y'all don't even understand. His teammates are not playing well. His teammates are not playing well at all. Like J-Dub tonight was barely recognizable. All NBA, my ass. He did not play like an all NBA player. Chet did not play like a second overall pick. Who else is there? Casey Wallace not playing like a lottery pick, and the other guy is Lou Dort. Like he is just 1-on-5 splitting the shit out of this team. There's no Shaq here, y'all. Y'all want to compare, Shea to Kobe. Kobe had Shaq. When he won a championship again, he had Gasol. Who on this team is inspiring the type of offensive confidence that that Pau Gasol did, or even Lamar Odom did? No offense, man. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is pulling one of the all-time carry jobs, and you can say defense, but at some point you got to score, and their offense has been good, right? There's not a single player on his team right now that I believe is a better shot maker than Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. Go down the list. There's like 50 guys in the league that I could give you that are better shot creators. Andrew Nembhard might be a better shot creator than a lot of guys on his team. Every guy on his team, right? Pascal Siakam is a better shot creator. So you have to appreciate. You can call this team a super team all you want. They're not a super team. They're not a super team. They're an insanely well coached, very disciplined, very defensively oriented team that has a lot of holes offensively and a lot of players who can't put the ball on the court or create one advantage for themselves against a set defense. They run off their transition opportunities. Since when is Isaiah Hartenstein like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? He's not. Alex Caruso, that's a fifth option. They're a team full of third, fourth, and fifth options right now. And one superstar. And I'm sorry, I'm shuddering to think that there is another guard in NBA history that I can put on this team that is going to accomplish 68 wins. Maybe. And when I think of those guards, it's the same names: LeBron, Kobe, Jordan. That's it. Those are the names. Steph, dude, I don't think maybe. But he hasn't, because who on this team is Klay Thompson? Who on this team is a creator? I was saying shot creator like Draymond Green. Who is creating the type of offense that Draymond Green was creating? With worse rosters? No. Nah, man. And Shea's a better defender than Steph too. I'll put it that way. Worst rosters is absurd. I don't think it's absurd at all. I think y'all drastically overrating Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's supporting cast here. Jalen Williams might have made an All-NBA team. He is not like some sort of elite shot creator. Oh my God. Wow. The 2015 Warriors are a worse supporting cast. I don't think they were, man. Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala. What are we talking about? Andre Iguodala? Who on this team inspires Andre Iguodala confidence with the ball in their hands? It's a fucking 6-7 point forward. That team had endless creation. That team was awesome. Like, what are we doing? No, that team was amazing. Okay. Chris Burgess says Pacers are winning the next game and the title. The Thunder are overrated. They're really not, but sure. Whatever you say, man. Okay. Quickly, let me pull up the advanced box score from the last game just to give y'all a little bit of perspective on how shit at the end screws things up. Okay. So here's the last game. Shea had a game score of 26, 38 points, obviously 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. Today he had 4 steals, so he's averaging 3.5 steals in this series, which is pretty amazing. But what's most impressive is Shea had a 10.4 box minus, which is ridiculous. They had a 108 defensive rating with him on the court, also ridiculous, especially given, the other team won. And Lou Dort had a 12.3 box minus, which is also amazing. Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein, kind of interesting. Old. Every player over 25 on this team, 25, 26, those are the older guys. And when you look at the guys who really struggled, it's a lot of the inexperienced guys, right? As this series goes on, you're going to see some of those players get better. But it's interesting. All of the talk about Hallebertton carried. Hallebertton did not carry. 0.4 boxes minus. He was invisible for most of that game. Truly. 18% turnovers for 17% usage. Shit. The lowest usage percentage of the entire starting lineup. You're a superstar. Name one superstar in NBA history who's had the lowest usage in their entire starting lineup. I'll wait. It's never happened ever. Not Jason Kidd, nobody. I don't know about Jason Kidd. Maybe Jason Kidd or Steve Nash, but no, I don't think so. I cannot imagine. Just passive, man. Passive. He hits the shot late. Everyone gasses it up. He's a superstar now, and Shea's a bum. You're not realizing Shea played so much better. It was Siakam who really did a lot of the damage in that game. It was Obi Toppin who did a lot of the damage. Thomas Bryant who did a lot of the damage, right? Andrew Nembhard who did a lot of damage. Those are your positive guys for the last game, right? Not to get too overly, obsessed with the numbers and what they say, but the numbers are not lying. You go watch that game. And the thing is, Shea scored 38, and I don't even think he had an A+ game. You just wait until he has an A+ game. I think he had an A- game in the last game. I think he had an A game, let's say B+ game in the last game, because I didn't like some of his defensive issues down the stretch. I think today's game was like a solid A. Just wait until he gets an A+, man. And I think, given the youth of this Thunder roster, I suspect that they will struggle a little bit on the road in Indiana, new environment, away from home, a lot of youth, right? Your young kids are already struggling. I don't even want to think about what they're going to do on the road. Role players struggle on the road. We know this. Shooting percentages go down on the road. We know this. Whistle is a little less favorable on the road. We know this. Shea is going to have back-to-back masterclasses on Wednesday and Friday if the Thunder are going to fulfill the prophecy of Thunder in 5. And I think they're more than capable of doing this. I think they'll, there was a comment from Miles Turner about friendship being the superpower and how he kind of drew this parallel between how the Indiana Pacers are super locked in and super connected to each other, and how they're a little bit like OKC in that sense, that they're also locked in and super connected. And I do think that's underrated. I think it's underrated that you actually like the people you go to work with. I think it's underrated that when shit hits the fan and one player is really struggling, that someone can talk to that player and be like, bro, we need you to come up, without it being like they're coming at my throat. I think that's very important. So if I'm Shea right now, I'm looking at my locker room and I'm saying, we're in for war, guys. We cannot come back home down 1-3. We just can't, right? They stole one. Let's go get it back, right? Now, if this series is, if I'm being honest, I keep thinking Thunder in 5 makes sense, but I think they'll split it. I think they'll probably split it. Maybe Indiana gets game 3, OKC gets game 4, or maybe OKC gets game 3, Indiana gets game 4, and now we're back. We're back to neutral. It's a best of 3, 2 games in Oklahoma City. If this goes to 7, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit worried about OKC. I'm actually very worried about OKC. If this goes in 7, I'm very worried. And I hope Mark Daigneault knows that. I hope Mark Daigneault knows that as much as I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the smartest, is a really smart player, I do think the smartest player is on the Indiana Pacers. And he's getting better. He's going to get better. He hasn't figured it out yet. He's not, but maybe he figured something out in the fourth quarter. So continuing on that line, in a game 7, as much as I have been a very big critic of Pascal Siakam, his experience in those moments, his age and talent and experience could push Indiana over the edge in a road upset win over OKC in a game 7. So if I'm looking at this from the OKC Thunder side, I need this series to end in 5 or 6. It has to be 5 or 6. Not letting this get to a game 7 where shooting variance and some random fluke shot that touches the heavens and comes back down to earth as Tyrese Halleberton is like, holding the choke sign. I'm not taking that chance. And as much as I am very impressed by OKC's ability to continue to stick to their mission of developing guys and building up confidence and continuing with their culture and all that stuff, I think that is very, very important for them to realize these opportunities do not necessarily come back. We're seeing it. When I think about championship windows, how many chances did Milwaukee really have, and how many did they capitalize on? They had about 4 or 5 chances, right? Took a couple swings, couple misses. Their window technically opened the year the Raptors won it. They lost in the conference finals. They go back next year. They don't win it again. They go back the next year. They do win it. They go back the next year. They don't win it. Boom. There's your 4 or 5 chances. You got one. You got 1 out of 5. Denver, same thing. Their window opened in 2019, 2020. They started getting better and better. They finally won one. And this year, I would say their window is slowly starting to close, right? But that's what you aim for. You aim for 6, 7, ideally 5 at least chances, 5 swings at it with your core. And when you trade for these aging stars or whatever, where you have disastrous injuries, your window shrinks, your window closes. Oklahoma City Thunder, I think their window loosely opened last year. A little bit. I didn't have them winning it last year, but I thought like they could be competitive. This year is really the full start of their window. By next year, they'll be signing, J-Dub and Chet to extensions. The roster will get expensive. Injuries can happen. Guys age out. We don't know how long Shea has at this level. My money would be, he has 4 or 5 years solid at all-time great guard level. Takes care of his body. He works hard. He's not complacent. He's a super gym rat type of guy. So I don't think a championship is going to make him fat and lazy. I think it's going to make him more motivated. But you still don't know if every single year you sustain a J-Dub injury or Chet injury at the wrong time and you just get heartbreak after heartbreak. You're here. You have to capitalize on this. Right? Zigsaw Puzzle saying, unrelated to basketball, but did you watch the Roland Garros men's final today? Historic comeback from Alcaraz. Great showcase of mental fortitude. I did not. So I watched Coco win, which was awesome. And I watched Novak lose. I recorded it. I don't know if that will be his final French Open, but what a career. I think, if I'm being honest, in my lifetime, I've watched Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky. My favorite tennis player before Novak was Pete Sampras. I used to model my tennis game after Pete Sampras. I was a better tennis player than a basketball player. I was good at tennis. I was really good at tennis, actually. When I was 12 years old, 13 years old, I was teaching adults how to play tennis. So that's maybe something I've never shared on this channel, but yeah. I fell in love with basketball more. Yeah, way more. So I used to like Steffi Graf as well. Like when I was younger, I think I was like 3 years old or something, and I had a crush on Steffi Graf. 4 years old. I don't understand why a 4-year-old Rob had a crush on Steffi Graf. I look back on it now, and she's not even that attractive. I don't get it, but anyways, but yeah, Novak Djokovic is probably like the greatest athlete. I mean, I saw Tiger Woods too. Like, man, I'm very lucky to be alive. I've literally watched the all-time greats. Like, respect to Bill Russell, right? shit. This is crazy. Like the run, the titles, the sustained excellence. Phoenix plays that set, Michael Phelps easily. I think with Phelps, you're probably just talking about the margin between him and the next best player. But I'm talking about like 2 decades of dominance, you know? Shit, I watched Tom Brady too. Shit, I really have seen like some of the greatest athletes of my generation. I also watched. Well, I guess I didn't see Ali. That would be it. I didn't get to see Muhammad Ali. Pen, do you think seeing how well CP3 worked out with Shea in his development, the Raptors should try and replicate what CP3 that with CP3 with IQ? If you're suggesting that we should bring in Chris Paul to assist in the development of Emmanuel quickly, I think I'd be more interested to see what someone like CP3 could do for Scotty Barnes, actually. That's true as well. Shit. Messi. My God. Lionel Messi. Yeah, I really have. Again, like my favorite players growing up in all sports were not the all-time greats. Pete Sampras was not the greatest tennis player we've ever seen in his generation. He was great, but he wasn't the greatest. Even in his time, he was very rarely considered the greatest player. Uh, Serena Williams is another one, right? There's so many. My God, we've seen so many greats over the last 30 years. And we're witnessing so many right now. I'm watching Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they're all-time greats too. There's a lot of admiration and respect. I've watched Kevin Durant. He's an all-time great. Kobe Bryant. He's an all-time great. Shaquille O'Neal. He's an all-time great. Usain Bolt. He's an all-time great. Like, there's so many people. Cristiano Ronaldo. Sure. Like, my favorite my favorite football player growing up was Alessandro Del Piero. Loved Alex Del Piero. So, yeah. Chris said Roger Federer is the greatest tennis player of all time. What do you think, Rob? I think Novak clears. Ronaldinho was amazing as well. Yeah. I love how nobody has mentioned baseball. So this is the most un-American thing about me. I don't like baseball. I don't know what the hell it is. I just don't. I'm not a fan. I don't get it. I grew up in Washington Heights, which is like a super Dominican neighborhood, and I just didn't get into baseball. And then, we went to Nashville. Baseball is big there. NASCAR's big there. I just can't get involved. Like, I can't get my brain to care about certain sports. Like, even though I played rugby in high school and was captain of a rugby team, I do not personally like watching rugby and give a shit less about rugby. There's a lot of there's just some sports that I can't care about. MMA is one sport that I can get my head around, because I liked wrestling growing up. So MMA is not that far away from it, except it's real. I'm like you. I don't like much baseball, and I'm from California. There you go. Chris Burgess says Wayne Gretzky is the GOAT of hockey. Is there somebody currently playing in hockey that you think might be in that conversation? Let me know, Chad. Is there someone currently playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs that maybe? That's the answer I was looking for. He's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, there will always be the need to compare the Crosbys to the Lemieux to the Bobby Orrs or, whoever. For someone who doesn't watch a lot of hockey, I used to collect hockey cards. So it would start to like certain players and then, yeah. Okay. Carvin Chung saying McJesus. That's interesting. Nobody is touching Gretzky in this generation. McDavid is the best now, but he's no Gretzky. What's interesting is, we always want to preserve our memories. And I deal with this a lot on the panel, right? Now, I'm not saying you're wrong. I actually don't know enough about this at all to make any judgment. Trust me, I am not about to engage with you in a Gretzky versus McDavid debate. I am ill equipped and completely unqualified to have that debate. Ovechkin, none of it. I can't speak to it. I maybe watched half a game. I really don't know. Okay, honestly, but I do know a lot about basketball. And in my humble opinion, memories. I tried to bring this up on the panel, memories of memories, and people really didn't want to hear it, but it's true. Here's the funny thing. So we all have these memories. They get stored in a data bank in our brain. And, the more frequently you recall things, especially at distant intervals, this is something like we used to teach all the kids that we were tutoring, the more they are available at the front of your memory bank, right? So I want you to imagine, for instance, right, that, with the power of AI now, like you can really do this, right? Huh. Okay, sure. I've already addressed that. Okay. So the point here is I went to Disney World when I was 5 years old, right? And I had a white shirt, or 6 years old, 7 years old. No, I was 7 years old. Sorry, 7 or 8 years old, and I had a white shirt, and it had a green Goosebumps. Because Goosebumps was a big thing when I was a kid. So it had a green Goosebumps symbol, and I remember that I had this white shirt that had this green Goosebumps symbol. But why do I remember that so clearly? It was because it's in a picture, right? Now, I want you to imagine that somebody, without my knowledge, over some period of time, got a hold of that picture and then doctored that picture or photoshopped that picture and turned that green Goosebumps sign into a blue Goosebumps sign. Now, when I look at it, would I immediately notice, like, whoa, 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 whoa? Maybe, because I've looked at that picture so many times, I'm so firm. But what if it was something less obvious to me? Like it wasn't one of my favorite shirts, but it was like a maroon sweater that they turned into a blue sweater. Well, now I would remember that entire day with a blue sweater, and now I would recall it in a blue sweater, and my mind would just fill in the gaps. And every single time I had a maroon sweater in my memory, it would just automatically color it blue. And this is why sometimes people, who are the victims of violent assaults or, armed robberies, can sometimes get coerced into misremembering some stuff. And this is why victim suggestibility is such a huge thing. And so I say all of this to bring up the fact that when you were young, you know s- in the case of Daryl or myself, whatever, when I was first watching Michael Jordan, like I had never seen anyone do anything that this guy was doing. So the wonder and amazement of watching someone do things for the first time is so, so, so different, especially from the lens of a child, than watching someone do it for the 85th time. Or especially, if you want to compare someone like Shea to someone like Kobe or Shea to someone like Michael, watching somebody do something that you saw someone else do 25 years ago, especially when today you're watching it from the cynicism of cynic, cynical, I would say cynical worldview of an adult, as opposed to, the merriment and, ignorance of a child. And that's why I think that a lot of people just can't let their goats go. There's nothing objective about a comparison between Michael Jordan and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, or Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, or LeBron and Kobe, or whatever. Like there's just nothing objective about it. I mean, you can go down to the stats and you can get very, very nitty-gritty into it. But the truth is, you really are arguing how these people made you feel when you watch them do what they did. And for a lot of people, right, it's backwards because they're watching Shea now and they're watching Kobe on the highlights. So 12 years from now, 15 years from now, you'll have some people saying Kobe and Michael couldn't hold a candle to Shea. But that's because they watch Shea do this shit live and they're watching Michael and Kobe in hindsight, which doesn't have the same emotional appeal. This is why I think people shouldn't be so quick to trust their own memories. One, two, shouldn't be so quick to judge other people who are incapable of seeing this logical, fallacy or logical, hole. But I think that it's very, very important to consistently double check. So for me personally, watching Kobe through most of the 2000s, it was always from the lens of rooting for the other team. I was a huge fan of the Portland Trailblazers. I was a huge fan of the Detroit Pistons. He whooped both the teams. You know, the Detroit Pistons eventually did get over, but he was against them. He was the other guy. I was a fan of those Sacramento teams. He was always the other guy. I was a fan of the Raptors when he put up 81 points on us. I was on the other side of it. So being on the other side of someone else whooping your team's ass and putting up 81, it's going to make you feel some sort of way about it. You're going to be like he's getting flopping calls, he's getting a magic whistle, he's not really that good, all that stuff. So removing that from the context of the emotional attachment to, well, this guy keeps beating the shit out of all my favorite teams, right? So I'm gonna hate him. Now I went back and started watching full Kobe Bryant games and just trying to study him the way that I study Shea. And it's interesting how he moved up like 3 spots in my all-time ranking. I had him 13th or 12th all time, and I moved him up to 10th based on watching more Kobe Bryant. It's interesting. And also, like at 13 or 14 years old, what the fuck did I know about basketball? Like, I mean, I was playing basketball, but it's not like I knew anywhere close to how much I know today. So, with everything I know today, like, it's kind of like it's very fractured. On the one hand, you have, 2020 to 2025 Rob watching Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and you have 2000 to 2010 Rob watching Kobe Bryant. Like, which one of these two is way, way, way more qualified than the other? Obviously, the one who's watching Shea. So it's just about shit testing. Don't say, well, I remember exactly how good Vince Carter was. No, you don't. You have no idea. You remember the highlights, you don't remember the lowlights. Go watch it. Go watch it all. You might be shocked. I think it's so important to go back and watch full games. And, in the moment we get caught up, that's why we do film study. That's why we do film study. You know what was really cool today? We were on playback. This is really cool. We were on playback today. Shout outs to you if y'all were with us. And during halftime, they usually play like some clips of a particular player. And in past, it's been like Kyrie highlights or whoever. And today, Ron was like, well, what are we watching today? And I was like, Scotty Barnes highlights. Like, I wanted Scotty Barnes highlights because I wanted everyone to see how good Scotty is. And what's interesting is someone had spammed like $300 of super chats directed at me. And I was like pushing that. I was like, yo, like, I'm getting all the super chats here. So even though I don't get a dime of that money, it doesn't matter. Like, it's going towards player's choice. I was like, I should get to choose because I got the most super chats. I'm the one who gets to choose the halftime show. So they put on fucking Jason Tatum highlights. Snooze fest. Jason Tatum highlights. Eventually, after I consistently bitched about it for another 4 minutes, they finally put on some Scotty Barnes highlights. Bro, you should see their faces. Scotty Barnes 2023, 2024 highlights. And they were like, oh, damn. Every play, they were like, oh, damn. Oh, damn. And I'm like, this is what I've been telling y'all. But they don't watch them. They don't watch him. They don't fucking watch him play. And a lot of these Raptor fans that want to trade this guy, they don't watch him play either. Because the truth is, how many of y'all have watched a game where half your attention is on your partner and the other half is on whether your food delivery is there and the other half is like on your phone checking X and Twitter and whatever the hell I'm saying and what Samson's saying online? How many of you are actually watching these games, studying them? How many of you have been watching them twice? How many of you are dissecting them? Like, the truth is, fan interest has been down in the Raptors. League interest has been down in the Raptors. Am I shocked that Scotty Barnes is not getting his praise? No, I'm not shocked. Of course he's not getting his praise. Also, before I forget, how many of you are reasonably gainfully employed? Well, I've got great news for you. A friend of this channel is selling a home, and I promised I was going to show his listing on here. It is 119 Florence Street at Queen and Dufferin. Y'all know the guy. His name is Vince. Vince, the music guy, is selling his home. It has not sold yet. And I just wanted to show this beautiful home. I was literally showing to my girlfriend, and I was like pissed off as hell that we don't have the money to make to make an offer for this. Like at what 1.3 million? Damn. I'm not a realtor. I'm doing a favor for a friend who has, by the way, done a lot of favors for me. I mean, every year Vince is like, "Yo, I got tickets to a Raptors game. Let's go." And genuinely speaking, Vince is like the best dude ever. Like seriously, like I read people pretty well, and he's just like he's supported everything I've done. I can't even tell you. Like this guy, he supported Penn Dance every year. He comes to Penn Dance. When I was making when I was doing my feature, he gave us a song which was just perfect for that. He helped voice over the opening of the intersection. He's in that. Like I'm just like, yo, like I hope there are 10 gifts in life as great as somebody who supports you the way Vince has supported me and my work. So I'm gonna be honest, like if he gets his house sold through PENSARE Basketball, I don't want to dime from it. I'm just very happy for him. So yeah, so this is what it looks like. This is where he's been calling from. You know, the dope studio space that y'all see is very cool. It's a great it's a great home. You know, great neighborhood, great patio there, deck, chill out at night, nice bathrooms, 3 bedrooms. I think it's 3 plus 1 bedroom, I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. So if you got some disposable income out there and you got some good credit, definitely check this one out. I can't say I'm not a realtor. I've certainly bought a couple of condos in my life. Never one for 1.3 million, but who knows? I have no idea who watches these lives. But I did want to give some shout out and some shine to Vince and his home, which is currently on the market. It's a townhome with a garage. So, really cool place. Definitely give it a look. And it is 119 Florence Street. Definitely don't go pull up on Vince and be like, "Hey, Vince, I'm really big fan of your singing." Don't go do that. But if you have an offer to make for Vince's home, definitely go make it. Zigsaw Puzzle said maybe the guy who sent the power chats can buy it. Yo, honestly, maybe he can because he spammed like close to $500 of power chats for a 2 hour sesh. That was pretty cool. Okay, now I have made some waves online saying a lot of shit. Bro doxed him. I didn't dox him. He sent me the link. You crazy? That's Darko's spot. Darko lives at the mansion pen. Huh? Okay, cool. People are so weird about, giving credit to the president. It is really weird. I do want to remind you of
his challenge
Barnes said.
As the new captain of the ship, his challenge now is to leave his mark and become the next icon in Toronto's storied tradition.
How do you want Scotty Barnes to stand out as a part of this legacy?
Someone that just goes out there and gives it his all every single time. I want to bring a championship here. It's been done one time, but I want to bring more. So once I do that, that's just going to separate me from a lot of different people.
As the new captain of
That's cool. Also, Bald Wemby. That's a vibe. Went to a friggin' Shaolin Temple. That's pretty great. I asked you guys, who would you take at number 9 if all 4 were available? And 54% of you said Kaman Malawach. 31% of you said Carter Bryant. And less than 15% of you said Noah Senge or Derek Queen, which means more Carter Bryant propaganda is needed. This is a list of my 20 most underrated players by perceived value. So this is just players that I believe are underrated by league standards in terms of NBA community talks, Twitter, etc. And maybe even by general managers. I have no idea if general managers underrate these guys, but I certainly don't underrate them. And those players are Scotty Barnes, Desmond Bane, Jalen Johnson, Cameron Johnson, Jonathan Kuminga, Darius Garland, Emmanuel Quickley, Kevin Durant, Tyrese Maxey, Day'Ron Sharp, Keon Ellis, Peyton Pritchard, Brandon Ingram, Tari Eason, Santi Aldama, Josh Hart, Herb Jones, Cason Wallace, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Tamani Kamara. There are some more names that I could probably throw on that list. I probably should have thought about it a little longer than 5 minutes when I was thinking about this. Isaiah Stewart is definitely one of them that I feel like maybe he's a little bit underrated. I think I more or less was thinking a lot about, players on teams that aren't very good that get underrated because of team success not being very great. But it's just sometimes players in like reduced roles, right? Now, I did make a comment. I did make a comment on X saying that we should target Jonathan Kuminga, which seems to have stirred up quite a little bit of, I don't know, brouhaha. And people don't really care about his workout and shit, but I'll tell you right now, I do. And this dude is a gym rat. Watch this entire workout. Do you see like how he's chasing it? Like I don't know. Like some people have never done a basketball workout in their lives. I can tell you, I've watched a lot of basketball workouts. It says a lot about a guy when he has no wasted motion in these, where he is completely locked in on these, and he's doing everything at game speed. Anthony Edwards gets so much better because he does everything at game speed. How you practice is how you play. And I think Kuminga is just very underrated. Would you trade Mobo and a first for Kuminga? Well, that's not what it's going to take. It's going to take big salary, dude. It's going to take big salary. Carvin Cheng saying Trey Murphy. See, people brought up Trey Murphy and Denny Abdia. They used to be underrated. I think they're now a little bit overrated. Would I trade Mobo in a first? Yeah, it's gonna take big salary, my guy, because his contract has run out. His rookie deal is up, so his next deal is what you will be able to trade for. Because right now he doesn't have a deal. He's basically a free agent right now. So they will be able to do a sign and trade. He obviously doesn't want to stay there long term. They're not trying to pay him long term. So, it's going to be about $30 million a year, right? 25 to 30 is probably going to be the range. I think he has a lot left on the table. I think he can become a better playmaker, but his twitch, athleticism, and ability to get downhill and shot making and just, defensive potential. Again, it's a lot of potential, but he's 22 going on 23. He's very young. He's very young and he's very good. Doesn't he want 40 million? Sure. I'm sure everybody wants. Like, he probably sees himself as just as good as Scottie Barnes. The only downside on Kuminga, apart from the obvious, occasional brain farts and stuff, is that he legitimately sees himself as an all-star. Now, I typically don't like players who see themselves as all-stars when they're not all-stars, but I actually do believe in Jonathan Kuminga being an all-star talent. Like, he is really talented. From a basketball perspective, he's very talented. Reminds me a little bit, at least in theory, of guys like Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, in that he's really much more of a play finisher than a play creator, but he can do a little play creating too. Like, he's just very athletic, and it's very functional athleticism. We saw it against the Houston Rockets. They could not stop him at all. They had no answers for him, right? So was it against the Houston Rockets? No, it was the next series. My bad. So it was the next series they played. They had no answers. I think he was their most efficient scorer. Once Steph went down, Jimmy couldn't create an advantage downhill. It was all Kuminga, and he was ridiculously efficient. And they threw him out after not playing in a really long time, and he cooked. He did a great job. So I'm just more in line with, I think he is really underrated at this point. Like, he's gone probably from overrated to underrated. And I put Emmanuel Quickley on that list too. I think I can put, a player that's kind of missing from that list that probably belongs there too, Jakob Poeltl. I think Jakob Poeltl might be a little bit underrated at this point too. I was reading a ranking the other day of top centers in the NBA, and Jakob Poeltl was 26th. 26, dog? He's not 26th. I'm not saying he's top 15, but he's not 26. He might be 16th or 17th, worst case, right? So SP saying, was that a Jerome James type playoff? Come on, man. No, of course not. Last year, when they didn't have Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins was AWOL and we don't know where he was definitely their second best player. Like, he was great. So, they offered him an extension, a very smart front office, allegedly. Good brain trust. They know him. They offered him 150 for 5 years. He didn't take it. That's roughly the same deal offered to Emmanuel Quickley. Now, I think if you're a Raptor fan, you might prefer RJ Barrett to Jonathan Kuminga. It's probably safer. You know him. He's already in your system. But next to a Scotty and a BI, especially if you add a Kevin Durant, what do you need more? I think you need defense. I think you need defense and play finishing, transition. You don't need more play creation. You have plenty of play creation here, especially if you consider Emmanuel Quickley a play creator, which I do. So, yeah, I think it just comes down to like how those pieces synergize. And I think Jonathan Kuminga could really, really unlock the transition offense of the Raptors. He really is very Siakam-like in that sense. Nolan saying Kuminga as a fourth or fifth option would be elite. See, I don't know if he'd be elite as a fourth or fifth option because I don't know if he would buy into being a fourth or fifth option, but yeah. I think he could score in bunches, right? Like, even if it's like, we have such a high-paced offense. I think guys have some sort of idea of where they rank in the league in terms of their scoring output. So as long as they're cracking 20, 22 points, they're usually pretty happy. But you could legitimately have 3 20-plus point per game scorers if you score enough points as a team, right? So, yeah, kind of comes down to that. Like, the Raptors want this equal opportunity, high-octane offense. Well, the good thing about that is you can produce 3+ 20 point per game scores, and maybe Kuminga could be one of them. And again, my pitch for Kuminga is more like if you strike out on Giannis and KD, that this could be the talent upgrade. I think the Raptors are more or less facing a decision with RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl, which is to say, what is the extension window? When do we want to do this? Do we want to do this? And for how much are we willing to do this for? I wouldn't be surprised. Now, this is not reporting, and this is completely purely speculation. Nobody has told me this. And I do know people who could maybe, guide me in the right direction. And I'll certainly, shoot this off of them or shoot this by them in the coming weeks as I have more conversations. But I wonder if the Raptors, given their relationship with Rowan Barrett, RJ's dad, given their affinity for Canada basketball and their, obviously well-meaning intentions towards RJ, have more or less looked at his Raptors tenure as a means of course correcting his career and getting him to his next stop. What I mean to say is maybe they don't necessarily see RJ Barrett as like this permanent championship fixture because of his defensive holes and redundancy and lack of shooting necessarily. Maybe this was a flyer to see if you could rehab the value of a player that you genuinely care about, that your community genuinely cares about. He can put some points on the board in some off seasons, but now you have Brandon Ingram. If you get Kevin Durant as well, RJ Barrett as a fourth option is not nearly as appetizing because now what do I need from a fourth option? I need Cason Wallace. I need Alex Caruso. I need defense. I need rebounding. This is not his strong suit. So while he is a really talented player, he's not the most malleable player. And he may not be the most inexpensive player either. And so the way I see it, the way his Knicks career was going, he was trending towards six-man role. If they had this lineup, he's not starting on this team. His value craters, his development craters, comes to Toronto, gets 2 years of solid development under Darko Rajakovic, rehabs his value league-wide. Now, approaching a contract year in which he is extension eligible right now, could the Raptors technically move him off to his next spot and get him paid in the process too? Because I don't think with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley on the books, I don't think you can pay him. And you're not going to lowball him. I would love to keep RJ Barrett at $22 million a year. I would love it. Sign the deal. $22 million is great. But 20 point per game scorers who put up like 6-7 assists, 6, 7 rebounds. Those guys can get overpriced really quickly. Especially when Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster are doing the negotiating, those guys can get 28 to 30. He may not think that he deserves less money than Emmanuel Quickley. In a lot of ways, he probably thinks he deserves more money than Emmanuel Quickley. And I think that will be the sticking point. So if I'm the Raptors, I probably already had this conversation with him. What do you think you're worth? And he probably said, I think I'm worth 35. And they're probably like, okay, let's give you the open run to prove that you're worth 35. And if in the offseason you're actually worth 35, and we still don't think you're worth 35, but you actually still think you're worth 35, we'll trade you to a team that agrees with you. And if somehow through watching you play, we decide that you are worth 35, now we got to move some other pieces to make room for you. I think the Brandon Ingram trade almost completely shuts the door on that. I think the Raptors, a lot of people said that the Brandon Ingram trade was an indictment of Scottie. I don't think it was at all. I think it was an indictment of RJ. So that's kind of where I'm at. Brandon Ingram does a lot of what RJ Barrett does, just he's much better. He's a better defender. And he is a little bit older. He's a little more injury prone. I'll hand him that, RJ, but he's a better defender. He's a better rebounder. He's a better playmaker. He's better at everything. Everything. He's a better finisher. He's a better shooter. He's a better mid-range operator. Completely makes RJ redundant. It's not to say unplayable, but redundant, because the only way you can keep RJ Barrett is if you shore up your other spots, because you have a lot of the same thing and not a lot of this other thing that's very valuable. Jonathan Kuminga fits a lot better than RJ Barrett. That's not me saying that Jonathan Kuminga is right now a better player than RJ Barrett. He might be, he might not be. I don't know. I think they're very similar. But he's younger, can fill a much better defensive role. He can actually play the 4, even though he'll be a little bit undersized there. He gives you a lot more size on the wing. Makes a lot more sense from a transition perspective. And hey, you're getting a player in who's 22, 23 years old, who Darko can probably unlock into much more than what he is. Who knows? But yeah, I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if the Raptors haven't at least called about Jonathan Kuminga. But obviously, he has his sights set on all-star. I'm going to be an all-star in this league. And if you just simply don't agree with that, or you think that's going to be distraction, sure. But I don't think a player believing themselves automatically makes them selfish, or whatever the tag or the media representation or whatever. I think, and this is just me, again, speculating, I think a lot of the coverage around certain players becomes really toxic when the same people start listening to the same people. And Steve Kerr is obviously he's a person who has a lot of sway in the broadcast community. Their ex-general manager, president, is currently a broadcaster. People talk, okay? And the story starts to get told from the perspective of this entitled brat who thinks he's worth too much. And that's kind of like how the Dennis Schroeder story was told when he rejected his offer. Look, man, this is a free market. Players are free to reject offers that they feel do not reflect their value. I'm not going to be mad if I find out that RJ Barrett wants 35 and the Raptors only want to offer him 30, just like I wasn't mad when Fred VanVleet rejected 30 million, just like I'm not mad that Pascal Siakam didn't settle for less, just I'm not mad OG didn't settle for less. Go get paid. Go get yours. Who the fuck am I to count paper? I'm not going to do that. Never going to do that. You'll never hear me, complaining that a player wants too much money. I hope I've never done that. If I've ever done that, I apologize. And, I apologize in hindsight. No. But who would you rather pay $30 million to? The guy who doesn't fit or the guy who does fit? I'd rather pay $30 million to the guy who does fit. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Anyways, it's not JK, it's his agent, who is a family member, not really a real agent. Cool. RJ in a first for Dyson Daniels. Improve your perimeter defense. I'd rather pay Dyson than RJ if I'm the Raptors. Well, I don't think RJ plus a first gets you Dyson Daniels at this point. Maybe it could have gotten you Dyson Daniels last year. And this is where I say, underrated, overrated, right? Dyson Daniels 2 years ago, in my opinion, would have been number 1 on the most underrated players list. I talked about him endlessly. In fairness, I also talked about Onyeka Okongwu in that same vein. I just thought when this guy gets to a spot, like, he's going to be amazing. Right now, I think Cason Wallace is super underrated. Not quite Dyson Daniels, but similar. What if RJ loves it enough here that he would take less money? Well, I don't think the money is as important to these guys as what the money says about you. And I think what the money says to RJ is the same thing as what the money would say to Scotty or IQ. I think if you actually care about RJ as an entrepreneur and as an individual and as a basketball player, if you're the Raptors, you want him to get paid. You don't want him to take a discount. And that may sound silly, but you don't want a player who genuinely believes they're worth 30, who may even have a market to be worth 30 somewhere, to take 20 to appease you, right? And I understand players doing this at the end of their career, but for a player who works as hard as RJ Barrett, who is as young as RJ Barrett, who is as talented as RJ Barrett, there's certainly no need for him to do that. Now, look, I think people sometimes misconstrue my desire to maybe move off of RJ or Grady or any one of these players, or Jakob in the past, or Pascal in the past, as my disliking these players. No, it's not about disliking these players. It's about a firm understanding of who you're building around, number one. And number two, it's about understanding value, market value, and fit. Okay. RJ Barrett in a vacuum, right? In a vacuum, is a better player than Isaiah Hartenstein or maybe even Ivica Zubac, or trying to think of another player. Right now, he might even be a better player than Drew Holiday, right? Not really, but they're close. But Drew Holiday fits 1,000 times better right now than RJ Barrett to what you need. He synergizes your group better. He fits more of a need. And when it comes down to your fourth and fifth options, you must think about fit and need. It's only when, like, everybody wants to put your Imani Bates as a fifth option because he's super talented. It's like, no, your fifth option can never be Imani Bates. Imani Bates can only ever be a second or third option. He can never be a fifth option. He doesn't do fifth option shit. For RJ Barrett to become a fourth or fifth option on a basketball team, he would have to become a great screen setter. He is not. He would have to become an elite finisher. He is not. He would have to become a great knockdown shooter. He is not. He'd have to become a good defender. He is not even close. He would have to become positionally versatile as a defender. You can't guard one position. You want to guard three positions? You can't do it. So when you look at Herb Jones on one end and RJ Barrett on the other end, and you watch him play, you say RJ Barrett is a lot better than Herb Jones. True. But Herb Jones is twice as valuable as a fourth option than RJ Barrett is as a fourth option, because there's only one basketball, and that's the way basketball works. Jakob Poeltl is more valuable as a fifth option than Domantas Sabonis. Who's more talented? Who's better? Of course, Domantas Sabonis is better. This is what every idiot general manager who ever tried to construct four awesome players to play together never understood. Kobe and Shaq were awesome. Awesome. With Ron Harper and Horace Grant and Rick Fox and Glenn Rice and Robert Horry and Derek Fisher. Those players are awesome role players. And then some lunatic had the bright idea, let's bring Gary Payton and Karl Malone in here. Well, no. Karl Malone is not better at being a fourth option than Horace Grant or Brian Grant, for that matter. He's just not. And this idea of just stacking talent is flawed because it ignores how basketball is played. There are certain players that can scale down very effectively. This is the player who scaled down correctly. Ray Allen, Chris Bosh. Typically, scaling down requires two things: defensive participation and shooting. Those two things are non-negotiables. Players like Steph Curry can transition into role players later in their careers. They'll be able to do it relatively well, although the defense is a little bit shaky, but the shooting will always be valuable. Kevin Durant will be able to scale down perfectly into a fourth option. When he's 41, if you need him to just stand in the corner and just guard his space, he can do it. Giannis will not do as well as a fourth option or a fifth option in his, the last year of his career, just like Shaquille O'Neal didn't do as well as a fourth or fifth option. This is what I'm saying. There are certain players and you think they're better than this guy. And so if I'm swapping one for the other, Alex Caruso, Josh Giddey is the perfect example of how basketball is played. Alex Caruso is not as talented as Josh Giddey. He's not as flashy as Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey had plenty of quote-unquote RJ-like impact this year. He had huge box scores. He had game winners. He even had, I think, like 30, 20, 10. I don't know, like freaking crazy performances. Very instrumental. But for what a fourth option needs to do on the basketball court, Alex Caruso is much better. So this is what I'm saying. The Raptors, they have a lot of guys who are like miscast second and third options. Grady is a miscast third option right now. He can get a lot better. He's still 21. I give him some time, right? RJ, IQ, Scotty, BI. You can't have this many third, second options. At some point, you need like a legit one, and you need legit 4s and 5s. Now, your legit 4s and 5s, Jonathan Mobo, that's a legit 5. Jakob Poeltl, legit 5. Jacoby Walter, legit 4-3. You know, I'll say like 4-3. Jamal Shed, legit. Not legit because he can't shoot. So Jamal Shed, not so much. Ochai Agbaji, legit fourth option, right? It's valuable, very valuable to have these archetypes on your team. Herb Jones, legit fourth option. Like very legit fourth option. Tamani Kamara, legit fourth option. These are the types of players you need. So Jonathan Kuminga, honestly, probably more of a third option, which will require Emmanuel quickly to scale back a little bit, but really capable of scaling down to a fourth option role because of his defense. So much better if you do get Kevin Durant. I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. This is how I see basketball in general. And it differentiates, you know, from a lot of people, because right now, if someone said, would you trade Alex Caruso for Austin Reeves? And you watch Austin Reeves and you watch Alex Caruso, you're like, of course, you'd be a dummy not to. And it's like, yeah, there goes your championship. Alex Caruso can't, Austin Reeves can't do what Alex Caruso does. So I think Nikhil would be great. Nikhil fits, like, again, Nikhil versus RJ is a great debate here, right? It's very interesting. Both Canadians. RJ is considerably better. Nikhil fits what you need more, right? Trey Murphy is a great example. Trey Murphy versus, RJ Barrett. It's the same thing. RJ's got a lot of creation stuff. Trey Murphy is more of a catch and shoot guy. He doesn't do a lot of creation stuff. He's evolving, though, in that regard. And he's a much better defender. I don't think Trey Murphy was a very good defender this year. And honestly, that's my big gripe with him. That's why I'm pushing more for Herb Jones than Trey Murphy in this case. But yeah, Trey is phenomenal. Thoughts on IQ's fit? I think Emmanuel quickly was on my super underrated list, right? Like, I think he's kind of been asked to take on this role that's not necessarily like for him. And obviously, like, if you had an opportunity to trade Emmanuel quickly plus Grady Dick for Darius Garland, you take it and run. Not married to the guy. I understand. If he needs to get traded, he needs to get traded. I just think as a fourth option, if he can dial back up on that defensive end, shit. Next to spacing and talent, like, if you were to get Kevin Durant and Emmanuel quickly as the fourth guy, his openings become deadly, and he does so much to extend space for the others. Could be really interesting. Andrew Wiggins is a good fourth option. What do you think, Rob? Yeah, he's a pretty decent fourth option. Could also scale up to a second option. He's malleable. He has value. I just think, I really don't know what happened with him the last year. He's been a little bit absent, inconsistent. I don't know if it was something personal going on in his life. Heard some rumors about some stuff that's been happening. So I really don't want to comment on it. But as long as everything is, the situation is all good, I believe in Andrew Wiggins. I do. He's a good player. Inconsistent, though. A little bit inconsistent. Anyways, an hour and 29 minutes into this one. Give this video a like if you haven't already. And a big shout out to Zigsaw Puzzle for the super chat. Appreciate you. And I am going to... What am I going to do? Probably go watch a movie or something. Or maybe I should go to sleep because it's 1 a.m. I'm going to go to sleep. Also, Chuck Swirsky. I read a comment from Chuck Swirsky this morning where he said, I don't know, something like go eat ice cream. And it was like 9:30 in the morning when I read it. And I was like, you know what? I'm having ice cream for breakfast, bro. Fuck this. And I did. Ice cream with fruit and Nutella. So I don't necessarily suggest it to anybody, but I do believe that a really big part of being an adult is keeping your childhood dream alive. So yeah, talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Peace.